做咩？做冇？想搞我？撤退！撤退！搞啊！搞啊！走啊！好多人追！搞啊！我追啊！
Hey everybody, it's Sid from Cool Moviegram, your source for everything about cool films. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out my Instagram, check out my content, and just let me know what you think. Right, okay, today it's another review, another Blu-ray purchase, and this time around it's the 88 Films release of Long Arm of the Law Part 1 and 2, which is like a deluxe box set edition. Okay, the films themselves, the first one being a 1984 movie and the second a 1987 film. The first one directed by Johnny Mak and second one directed by Michael Mak, who's the brother of the director of the first. Without further ado, let's just let's get things started. The first installment of this four-part series of films is centered around former Chinese army soldiers who are kind of living in poverty, who are kind of like coerced by their so-called older brother, played by Lam Wai, who's like kind of like the de facto leader of this group, to actually cross the border and enter Hong Kong illegally in order to take part in a get-rich-quick heist. And when they do, they are actually faced with troubles from the police. You have trouble from like other triads and getting involved with murky figures. And you know, whilst they actually are on a mission, they kind of get coerced by the kind of like the capitalist nightlife, the vices that were pretty much available readily. And eventually, kind of as things progress, I mean, the robbery doesn't really kind of go too well, but the fact is that everything's kind of like leading towards their self-destruction. And the second long arm of the law film centers around three former Chinese police officers who have actually been arrested for trying to kind of like deflect and well, escape the country to enter Hong Kong. But then eventually they're given a lease of life by the Hong Kong police, where they're actually saying go undercover first in order to infiltrate the Big Circle gang, which was pretty much the gang that the original Long Arm of the Law was kind of based around, which was actually mainland criminals who were formerly of the Chinese army, the Red Army as they call them, and you know, they're using their kind of like guerrilla warfare weapons expertise in order to kind of like, you know, commit crimes and robbery. As they kind of like infiltrate the Hong Kong underworld, they're kind of took in by an undercover cop played by Alex Mann, who plays a cop named Biggie, who's kind of like very jaded and kind of has kind of given up on any kind of like hopes for a normal life. But once again, when external factors are involved, they're kind of like coerced into the more or less the Big Circle gang themselves to kind of like take part in a major heist. But you know, things just don't go to plan again. I mean, yeah, that's what happens. Okay, the films themselves now. Okay, for the first Long Arm of the Law film, it's just such a kind of like, it's unflinchingly brutal, it's gritty. I mean, you know, it was written by Philip Chan, who was an actual police officer for about 11 years before becoming an actor and a screenwriter. He had actually written this movie kind of like after as his own experiences, having dealt with a lot of the kind of like mainland criminals, and also kind of like giving kind of like more of a detailed look into the lives of these people who are part of like the Big Circle gang. And of course the Big Circle is an area, a province called Guangzhou in China, and all around the surrounding areas and like villages and small towns where they have these just people from there who were pretty much former Red Army, and they'd actually use their kind of like weapons kind of skills and like army training in order to kind of like commit crimes. And this is something that was actually kind of sensationalized by the Hong Kong media at the time in the 80s, and also it was kind of like, you know, people kind of had this kind of really kind of negative perception of like of mainland Chinese people who kind of like decide to cross like the border to in order to come to Hong Kong. And exactly, this film, although these characters are very kind of like they are bloodthirsty criminals who, you know, they won't kill in you know, without hesitation, and even one of them kind of like, you know, forces a prostitute to kind of perform you know, a sexual act on him, you know, at gunpoint. And you know, these characters are kind of, but then they're very pretty much like very ruthless, very brutal kind of people. But then at the same time, I mean, Philip Chan's writing had actually kind of like humanized these characters, and kind of like showing that some of them, they have lives outside. One of them, I mean, it's like he's kind of like, he's his former sweetheart who's also a mainland girl who's actually working as a prostitute and a club hostess, also but then it's not like he can't even object to it because he knows how difficult it is for mainlanders to actually make it in China, in Hong Kong, sorry. And also you see one of them who's actually got like a family, who's trying to kind of like you know, make it back just so he could actually spend time with his wife and children, and he has a life. And you know, and also you see another one who's like kind of like the last kind of like heir of his family, and he needs to kind of like you know, he has to carry on the family name, and he actually has to come back because his mother or grandmother is at the start says that, you know, keep him safe. And but at the same time, I mean, the action in this film, there's a lot of gruesome violence. It doesn't seem very stylized in the way of like John Woo's kind of like kinetic gunplay. It's very kinetic. It's not stylized. It's not slick as a John Woo film. But then the fact is that it just looks absolutely kind of brutal. Like the robbery scenes, pretty much a precursor to what we saw in like Ringo Lam's City on Fire and anything else that pretty much Ringo Lam had put out. I mean, he had more or less. It seems like there was a bit of like Johnny Mak's work in this. I mean, this is the only film that he actually directed, the first one, and you know, it's, I mean, some of the robbery scenes, the kind of the car chases, the explosions, and the fact that it's all real explosions of real helicopters and kind of like, you know, these gunshots. And the fact that a lot of these the actual actors in this film who played the Big Circle Gang, except for Lam Wai, who was a former Shaw Brothers star, who had actually just done like, well, didn't really make it as much in the Shaw Brothers, but the fact that he was given this movie, apart from him, everybody else who was actually more or less his co-stars were actually members of the Big Circle. And you know, they were actual gangs because the director Johnny Mak wanted something very authentic, very realistic in this film, and which is why nothing like this has ever actually existed. Now, there's no other film like it, like Long Arm of the Law. I mean, there are like about 3 more sequels, but they're all thematic. They don't really carry on the story of the original, but they kind of have that same kind of thematic, kind of like mainland criminals kind of theme and story. But I mean, it's very unflinching and brutal. The violence just doesn't look glorified. It just looks really kind of like gritty and like just absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, the cinematography again is just absolutely great. It's like such a like well-made. I mean, Billy Chan and Sammo Hung's stunt team had actually kind of like choreographed these fight sequences. But the fact is, there's none of their actual the action sequences. There isn't really a kung fu movie. It's an actual crime drama. But the fact is, it doesn't seem as stylized as what you would normally expect from Hong Kong. But it's just kind of like very realistic, and it looks dangerous. And you know, it's just kind of like, it has a raw impact kind of feel to it. This is genuine kind of like something that actually looks real, especially for example the sequence, the shootout in the walled city, which was actually a part of Kowloon, as covered in my previous video, a part of Kowloon which was kind of cut off. I mean, every illegal vice was pretty much happening in that place: drugs, unlicensed liquor, gambling, prostitution, stripteases, whatever. I mean, it's just like every kind of like seedy kind of horror things. And then people who were living there were either addicts and pretty much or linked to the triads, or just poor people. And very rarely would the police actually go into this area. And the fact that some of the cast members of the first movie had actually kind of like decided to kind of actually go and commit robberies after the film they'd been filming, and they were actually kind of arrested. One or maybe more of them were actually beaten to death by the cops. And the fact is that they were criminal, they weren't actually actual actors. I mean, but this is kind of like, it's just shocking to see that. And the second movie, well, you know what, it's a very stylized, very stylish, very well-made film. It's just a great kind of like piece of genre filmmaking, where you've got people like, for example, I mean, Ben Lam, who's kind of like who was a member of the Jackie Chan stunt team at one point. He had appeared in Police Story 2, he had a small part in Police Story 1, and he's appeared in quite a few of like Jackie Chan's 80s Hong Kong action movies as a stuntman, or like kind of like a henchman or a villain. And him, and even Yoon Yak Cho, who aka Sonny Yoon, who's a martial arts choreographer, Yuen Woo-ping's younger brother. And they kind of like play these, they play the character. Their performances are just really good. Elvis Choi does an amazing job as a leading man. I mean, someone who's not kind of like doing kind of like vulgar things with women for once. He's actually kind of like has a very kind of in-depth kind of character. And even Sonny Yoon's character, who kind of plays in the second one, is a very kind of naive, kind of like, wears his heart on his sleeve type of guy. And but the fact is, and even for example, just the whole kind of casting, Alex Mann, definitely in this film, he kind of steals the show. His role as Biggie, and even the violence, for example, like the torture scenes, it's very unflinching. I mean, there are some like really kind of like well executed action sequences throughout the film, and even the ending was pretty bloody and kind of grim, but it just didn't match the kind of like brutality of the original film. The original film is just an absolute kind of like, it's a gem. It's kind of a one of a kind. But the sequel definitely is kind of like, it's a good worthy follow-up by Johnny Mak, who's the director of the first movie. His younger brother Michael had actually directed the second and I think the third movie as well. And what I would say is my rating for the movies. Now, Long Arm of the Law, okay, 5 out of 5. This gets a cool movie gram seal of approval, an absolutely unflinching, brutal, kind of like just gritty, violent, bloody masterpiece. It's a must watch for anyone, of no matter what kind of movies you watch, or whether you don't like Hong Kong movies, or you're not really into crime. Well, if you're into crime movies, if you're into like great cinema, kind of realistic kind of drama, I would say definitely Long Arm of the Law, the original 1984 movie by Johnny Mak, is a 5 out of 5. You need to watch this film. The second movie, definitely I would say is a worthy follow-up. Not as kind of like brutal, because this is pretty much, hiring actual actors to act in this movie, but it's actually a well-made, solid crime drama with some great action sequences and great performances. And it's actually well shot and great looking. But I would say this movie gets I'd give it a 4 out of 5. But definitely both of these movies worth watching. Comes in this really rigid kind of like the usual deluxe box set editions as you would normally get from 88 films, and of course you've got this amazing artwork, which is kind of splicing images together from 1 and 2, done by the incredibly talented Sean Longmore, who's been doing a lot of the 88 kind of like Hong Kong movies that have been coming out recently. I mean, I know normally it's usually Kung Fu Bob, but he hasn't done it in a while. And of course this is the first movie. Yep, and just a glare from my actual phone as I record it. Yep, and yeah, that's the second one. Yep, and this comes with like a it comes with a double-sided poster. You got, like, for example, this is for the first movie, which kind of like looks a lot like a James Bond movie, almost like a Bond poster. And yeah, this is for the second one. Yeah, so this is the second one, Long Arm of the Law. And of course the covers on so you don't get an actual poster from Sean Longmore on this, but then you get the reversible sleeves, the individual Blu-ray cases in this box set, and yeah, and also yeah, so, and of course you got that's for the first one, and we have this booklet which kind of pretty much goes down like the you know, has like a lot of kind of promotional material. That was kind of where the movie was kind of promoted, and also, for example, it kind of goes through like all 4 movies of like Long Arm of the Law. The picture quality, I mean, they're both from like a 2K restoration in 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio of, you know, for the Hong Kong cuts. With, you know, it's just, the movies look and sound amazing. It's just really good, great quality. Like, you know, the colors are just great. Kind of, it doesn't look, me watching this on a 4K TV, it looks absolutely incredible. And yeah, so of course, yeah, what it comes with is you got an amazing audio commentary by Frank Zheng on the Hong Kong cut, which kind of, again, is very, very informative. It kind of gives you a lot of kind of the background of the movie, and like, for example, you know, how some of these scenes were shot, and how, you know, how even, for example, they'd actually kind of like almost got arrested, but they did, some of the actors did get arrested, and well, not the actors, the actual filmmakers and whatnot, they got arrested because they found out it was actually cheaper to actually just pay the fines than actually getting consent to shoot the movie. And like, the fact is that how it kind of like, you know, the troubles that they had whilst shooting this film, especially when it comes to the wall city scenes. You also have a family business, which is an interview with Michael Mack, who's the actual screenwriter of the first film. And he kind of goes into, again, he talks about his own experiences on the film and whatnot, and you know, how he was surprised how the movie itself was such a huge kind of success when it came out, and the fact that it kind of broke new ground for pretty much for Hong Kong cinema. And then you got From Hong Kong Police to Big Circle Gangs, which is an interview with scriptwriter Philip Chan, who, again, most people in the West might know him as the Chinese gangster, the Hong Kong gangster in Jean-Claude Van Damme's Double Impact, and his brother Dennis Chan is the one who plays the master in Kickboxer. Yeah, and this guy was actually a former police officer, and kind of like explains on, like, for example, how he kind of like was kind of involved in the whole kind of like, you know, working as a police officer, how he even kind of like how he got into acting, and how he kind of like got into like screenwriting and whatnot, and how they worked on the script for Long Arm of the Law. And he didn't really expect it to kind of like be such a well-received film when it came out, and also kind of like how he drew from his own personal experiences of the of kind of like heading a unit of undercover cops to actually kind of like, you know, to write a film like, you know, the second one, Long Arm of the Law Saga 2, or Long Arm of the Law 2. Um, and then yeah, we have like a kind of like a conversation with the action director Billy Chan and scriptwriter Philip Chan, and they kind of like they relive their memories of kind of like shooting, like for example some of these kind of scenes, especially like the the explosions. Like there's one scene that they kind of like discuss about like how and one of the actors, which was Shun Wai, who's playing a kind of a shady double crossing triad boss, who's he was almost kind of like, well, he almost got burnt whilst in a scene where he's kind of like almost set in a car that's kind of like set ablaze. But I mean, this all even looks real as well in this film, and that's what just makes it amazing. There's an interview with Johnny Mak, which is kind of like from an older DVD release of the film, I think probably the French release, and the theatrical trailer, and of course it comes with the second one. There's also an export cut of this film, which is the English dub version, which is slightly shorter than the original language version, but I haven't actually I never sat through it because I'd rather just watch the original language cut. And the second one, there's actually has of course another Frank Gen commentary, which is great on the original cut. Man of Action, an interview with co-star Ben Lam, he kind of goes through his own experiences on working on this movie, and also kind of like what was going on, like for example in his career, like how he kind of like working with Jackie Chan and all these other people, and how it kind of like pretty much expanded his kind of like career as as an actor slash action star, stuntman and whatnot. And an offer you can't refuse, an interview with scriptwriter Philip Chan. Again, he kind of goes into more deep depth, and for example like how he used to kind of how he used his inspiration as heading a unit of undercovers when he was working at the Hong Kong police, and kind of how he wrote the script for this. The Iron Fist of Crime, an interview with stuntman Stephen Chan, who kind of explains his kind of like involvement in the movie, very and his kind of memories like of working in Hong Kong cinema at the time. Very informative. And you got the Hong Kong trailer and the English trailer for the second one. And yeah, and of course you got a great 40-page booklet which features writing on like all 4 films by Tom Cunliffe, and very informative, very kind of like detailed. It just kind of goes into the kind of like minute kind of like information and all the other details that were kind of like involved in the film itself. All 4 movies of like the Long Arm of the Law series. Now, okay, in terms of the package, yep, 5 out of 5. Brilliant presentation of the films, great bonus features, lots of great kind of like added things, and even for example the case, the artwork, everything is just an absolutely brilliant kind of it's a brilliant pick. So overall, this I would say is for any serious film buff into crime or Hong Kong movies or Asian cinema, definitely I would say buy this movie or these movies. Right, that was my my review of Long Arm of the Law 1 and 2. Let me know if you've seen these movies. I mean, what do you think of them, and what would you think of like if you've seen like 3 and 4? I've seen 3, but I haven't seen 4 yet. But for example, how would you rank these films in terms of like pecking order? But of course, for me, I mean, Long Arm of the Law, the first one, is just an absolute masterpiece. It's an absolute classic of the genre. Well, I'll probably be back soon. Anyways, be sure to again subscribe, check out my other stuff, and let me know your thoughts. I'll catch you on the next one.